Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. First full business day at home. Feels kind of weird, not gonna lie, to not wake up in a hotel, to get my kids up for school, and do all the normal things that I love so much. But I'm glad to be home, grateful for the experience and all the new friends I've met. I can't tell you guys enough how many members of the media were there. And it's really cool because we all are doing our own thing, but sort of in a collective way. And I've covered a lot of trials in person. And I have to say, this group of media right here, there was like no ego. There was no, I'm better than you. It was all everybody helping each other, filling each other in on what we've heard. And that's something that's always going to stick out to me. I have to say, what an amazing group of people we had down there to bring that case to you in many different forms and fashions, but still just a passion for justice and the truth every day. And I'm grateful to have been a part of it. Real quick, got to say a big thank you to Ken, Heather, JDF 1010, Jessica, and Patricia for your donations. Appreciate you guys. Popular bands, music fact of the day, popular bands who never had a number one hit. I've done some of these before, found some more. Always blows my mind. Who didn't have number one hit? AC/DC, The Clash, Black Sabbath, Bruce Springsteen. I was shocked with that one. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Green Day, and Jimi Hendrix. What in the world, y'all? All right, we're going to start off with some Alec Murdaugh because we're still hot off the trails in recovery mode, but the jurors are speaking out. Few of them, 4 actually. They are speaking out after finding him guilty on all counts. Now, Anjanette Levy, my partner in crime, interviewed James, who is the same age Paul Murdaugh was when he was murdered, by the way. We nicknamed him GQ because he always every day wore a cute little blazer and dressed up and had his little coffee in his hand. He was adorable. So he said deliberations were kicked off with a group prayer, and then they took an anonymous vote, which that first vote, 9 for guilty, 2 for not guilty, 1 just undecided. After talking about the case, it took about 45 minutes for all 12 to decide guilty, as we've heard. He said, we did have a few that were not on the same page, so we did an anonymous vote just in the very beginning to see where everybody was and make sure everybody was on the same page. Once they find out there was a divide, they just kind of opened the floor for anybody. Whoever had questions, they would talk those through. They also had evidence in another room. Some jurors, for example, were not familiar with guns, and so they weren't sure how they were able to tie those shell casings found around Maggie's body to older shell casings found all over the property. So some of the jurors who were more familiar with firearms explained that to them. He said, we all, I think, were very good at looking at all of the evidence and not jumping to conclusions, but rather taking all of the evidence and seeing where it led us. He also said the jurors prayed each day before testimony began. They prayed before entering the courtroom to return their verdict. And he said he believes that God guided them. Now, James, Mr. GQ, Amy, and Gwen were on Good Morning America today. I'm going to use their first names. They're out there, but just for privacy reasons, they said they would not have gone for the death penalty, even if prosecutors had put it on the table. Miss Amy said it would have been a hard thing for me. Death is a hard thing. The family has suffered a lot. This way, he gets to think about or focus on what he did. There's more of a punishment to have to live with that. She also said she doesn't know if we'll ever know the real reasons why Maggie and Paul were murdered. She said it might have been a combination of things, not just the financials. Ultimately, she thought everything was weighing really heavy on him, and that caused him to snap. She said his wife owned the majority of the things they had. I'm thinking it was more like greed. And she also thinks that he just wanted to be in control of everything. Now, when Creighton Water said in the openings that a storm was starting to gather, James said, it's a storm, Mr. GQ. It's a storm. It may not have been one thing, but there are so many things there that contributed to that overall storm, and it played a part in why the murders happened. One reason the verdict was quick, according to James, is one thing they did, as we know, they couldn't take notes. When they would go back to the jury room, they would write down questions they had and leave those in the jury room. So they had all that ready to go when it was time for deliberations. Miss Gwen said seeing the media outside on the first day of trial helped her realize just how big this was going to be. The first week and the last week, there were way more media there. So they come at openings, come back for the week of closings and deliberations. But believe me, even with those of us who stayed for the whole 6 weeks, there were plenty there. All the jurors who have come forward agree Alec taking the stand, huge mistake. Gwen herself could not believe he did it. She said, I didn't think he was crying. He turned it on and off, not genuine. And then when he decided to get on the stand, she was like, okay, so it was him. I don't know him, so I never knew his voice, but I realized it was him on that kennel video. And for her, that sealed the deal. James said, as far as Alec being on the stand, if I was him, I don't think I would have. But I think he believes that he's so convincing that he felt like that was his last resort. He also said they were well aware of him being an attorney, and that would be something that would be in the back of their minds. He said he's able to be emotional with cases. He's able to be emotional with himself. I think we were able to read right through that. Now, as far as Alec on I'm sorry, James said also about the prosecution, he said they had a good point referring to this as the storm. At points in time, the defense would take one aspect and be like, it couldn't have been this. And it may not have been that one singular thing, but so many things there that contributed to that overall storm that I think played a part. What an articulate young man. The piece of evidence, though, that solidified it seems like everybody's guilty verdict was the kennel video. Gwen said it likely would have been a hung jury if not for that video. Now, we know that the one juror, the egg lady that was dismissed last week, according to what we've heard, she was telling people, up to 3 people, that in her opinion, he was not guilty. That could have been your holdout. And maybe the other 2 who were going for not guilty initially, had it not been for that kennel video, may have been a little more solidified in their decision, I think. But it's really interesting. She said it was like Paul spoke from the grave. James also talked about that kennel video. He said it's something he lied about. If he didn't do it, how did he know what time to lie about not being there? He also told Anjanette Levy from Law and Crime, I think it's incredible timing on Paul's part. I don't think anyone would have ever known Alec was down there if it weren't for the kennel video. Wow. Little detective left a couple of clues. Another juror, whose name is Craig, spoke to Good Morning America last week, agreeing that kennel video was crucial. He said, I was certain it was his voice. Everybody else could hear his voice too. He said it happened right before they were phoneless. Remember, 8:44, that kennel video is taken at 8:49 within 30 seconds. Both phones ceased activity. So that stood out to him. Craig also said Alec is a good liar, but not good enough. He said, I didn't see any true remorse or any compassion or anything. And when he took the stand, he said he never cried. All he did was blow snot. No tears. He said it kind of showed his guilt when he took the stand. His head shaking all the time and no tears. And he wiped his nose like this. And he very harshly wipes his nose with his arm. I also noticed how Alec totally jerked the Kleenex out of the box with force. Now, James told Anjanette, I think he's good at being able to talk to people. And I think part of the way that he's able to be so good at talking to people is that he's convincing. And I think whenever he's convincing, he's also convincing himself. And I think he's able to do that because he often meshes the truth with a lie. Miss Amy said, as far as the financials, we could only consider it as part of the motive, but it helped show he was very convincing and manipulating, and it made sense. That, I think, to me, I complained a lot about how much financials were allowed in. It added days, but you're seeing now that that really showed his character, which was the whole point of bringing in the financials. We heard time after time after time, people he loved, he lied to and stole from them. I think that's a big deal. The visit to Moselle was beneficial for Amy, and it also factored into her decision to find him guilty because she wanted to see how big that feed room was, noting it was very tiny in person. She said, I also wanted to see if you could see down there to the feed room and the kennels from the main house, and she said you could. Of the deliberations, Craig said it was kind of loud, everybody talking over each other, but we got it done. James said he does believe Alec when he said he loved Paul and Maggie. James said of the jurors who returned to watch the sentencing, it was important for them to go back and see it to the end. He said, "We spent 6 weeks there. We bond. We're a very close knit jury in that point in time." So, I think it was just one of those things where he had to take the stand. It was detrimental to the verdict. But what were you gonna do? You have to account for the lie you told, and I think for me, I agree that that is the most damning thing. I don't care how paranoid you are, whether you're taking drugs or you just know you're gonna be the first suspect. If you truly are innocent, why don't you say, "Yeah, I saw them at 8:44. They were fine. I went to the house, I left, I came back, they're dead. Something happened after I left." It really is a huge, huge lie that ultimately did him in. I'm interested to see what else they have to say. I'm sure they'll continue to talk. I would love to talk to some of them. I have had one express some interest, so I'm crossing my fingers because the cool thing about the podcast is they can have the floor. They don't have to do it in 4 minutes. They can talk for 2 hours if they want and really open up. So I'm hoping that I get a call from one of the jurors at least. So we will see what happens. I'm keeping an eye on everything, and I'm gonna continue this weekend dues. You guys love that transition from jail to prison. I've got some other stuff, so I may do an episode or 2 on that this week. Also, I really want to do a live this week for everybody. I did one last night for my Patreon subscribers. Patreon perks, by the way, no exclusive content. They get ad-free episodes and lives every week. That's pretty much it. The highest tier gets a free t-shirt, but I've always said I'll never charge for content. I'm never going to charge for an episode for facts in the case. I don't feel right doing that, but people overwhelmingly wanted an ad-free option and some lives. So that's what that is. But I'm going to do a live hopefully this week. I'm going to see if Anjanette wants to come on and we'll just answer your questions like in a very chill way about these past 6 weeks. Moving on, Lori Daybell. Judge Boyce, holy moly, y'all. He granted Chad's motion to sever after denying it for how many times, y'all? It was based on DNA results from hair found at the crime scene that was returned too close to the start of the trial. Let me tell you all about our sponsor of the week, Prose. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to hair care, and that's because your hair and your hair goals are completely unique. My hair is dry and frizzy. I wanted to get rid of these problems. Thanks to my personalized Prose routine, I can honestly say I've never been in more love with my hair. First, Prose asked me for my hair goals, which was smoother hair with color protection. Their in-depth consultation also asks about you as a person. Prose asked me really unexpected things like my age, hair length, do I get split ends, and even my zip code, so that Prose can factor in the environment my hair lives in. Next, Prose analyzed all my answers and handpicked clean ingredients to help me reach my hair goals. I used the Scout Remedy, Clarify and Cleanse Color Extending Shampoo, and the Smoothing Solution Volume Building Conditioner. I also used the Boris hairbrush that makes my hair super smooth. My hair is completely different. The frizz is gone and it's so much softer. All their ingredients are sustainably sourced, ethically gathered, and cruelty-free. They're also the first custom beauty brand to go carbon neutral. If you're not 100% positive Prose is the best care hair you've had, they will take the products back, no questions asked, which is still set for Lori next month, April 3rd. I'm going to be up there off and on covering that for the podcast as well as Law and Crime. I am excited. That is what launched this podcast, was this case with me and Fruit Loop back in a closet during COVID. And it's kind of full circle, right? To actually get to sit in that courtroom. Chad's attorney said they need more time to review the results. And in addition, Lori did not waive her right to a speedy trial. That was a big influence on Judge Boyce's decision. So Chad's defense attorney, John Pryor, said that evidence provides, at least from my perspective, an explanation potentially of where Mr. Daybell and I are going to go in this particular case. I need to have an opportunity to test that evidence. So Judge Boyce said, I have to balance these rights of these defendants in this case. Severance is the only option I see. The length of the delay, if I were to continue this, it would be up to Ada County. I don't believe it could be a short delay. It would have to be more than 6 months additionally. So Lori's attorney, Mr. Archibald, he was on board with the severance, saying, if my client waived her speedy trial, I would also be asking for extra time. But since she has held that right and held it close to her, I have to respect her constitutional rights. Now, I really think if you read the tea leaves here and you go back to the initial hearing where she waived those rights, I think Archibald wanted her to waive it and give him more time. Remember, he is still very new to this case. He only was brought on after Mark Means was dismissed as her attorney, and this was when she was coming back from the state mental hospital after being found incompetent for months, which delayed the trial even more. I think that this severance could be very beneficial to Chad in some ways. It's going to show them the evidence. It's going to show what the state has. They're going to be able to watch witnesses on direct and cross. Although I tend not to say if I think somebody's guilty before the trial, and that's really something I'm trying hard to do. But y'all, I know this case like the back of my hand, and I've seen what evidence is out there, and good luck. But still, you never know. Juries are unpredictable. I totally don't think that this is going to be a nail biter when it comes time for deliberation in Lori or Chad's case. I think it's kind of going to be very obvious what happened. We know just in the document dumps what incriminating evidence that they found. If you're new to this case but want to get caught up before trial starts for Lori in less than a month, I have a mega series that I have to finish. By the way, I may be 2 episodes away, 50 something episodes that tell the entire story. So now's the time to start that. Share it with your friends if you want a case to talk about. A lot of new listeners who are not true crime buffs like most of us are, but now say, oh man, true crime is fascinating. So this is going to be the next big one to watch. We want justice for JJ, Tylee, Tammy Daybell, Charles Vallow. It's coming, y'all. The long road to justice. This case defines that. All right, moving on to Dylan Rounds. This blew my mind, y'all. 59-year-old James Brenner was arrested for the murder of Dylan last week. He's also charged with abuse of a corpse. Dylan last seen Memorial Day weekend last year in Nevada, Montello, Nevada, about 30 miles away from his home. Brenner had been on law enforcement radar for a while. He was named a suspect just a month after Dylan disappeared. He was actually in custody on a federal firearms charge when he was charged with this murder. He was a felon in possession of a firearm. Big no-no. Dylan's cell phone record showed he was in the area where James Brenner was squatting. And when they looked at phone pings, holy moly, y'all, that's when it all came out. So let's read the probable cause statement. It's only a paragraph. The 19-year-old victim was reporting as a missing person on or about May 30th, 2022. Sheriff's deputies, along with search and rescue crews, immediately got to work on efforts to locate the victim, but were unsuccessful. During the search, deputies discovered a pair of boots belonging to the victim nearby. So one boot had a blood stain that DNA analysis confirmed belonged to the victim, in addition to DNA belonging to the defendant. The victim's phone records were also obtained, which showed movements on the day of his disappearance on a remote property in Lucin, where defendant was squatting. Phone data showed that the last signal from the victim's phone was at the Lucin Pond, and a search of the pond led to the discovery of the victim's phone. A digital forensic download of the phone was conducted and led to the discovery of a time-lapse video with a timestamp taken at the time of the victim's disappearance. The video showed defendant with bloodstains on his arms and shirt as he is cleaning a gun. The shirt, which the defendant is wearing in the video, was analyzed, and the victim's DNA was found on the shirt. Holy smoking gun, y'all. Really, I don't think I've ever heard of somebody's phone being found in a pond months later and still able to get data off of it. And a time-lapse video with a timestamp showing the dude bloody cleaning a gun. Man, some things just come together, don't they? The defendant was interviewed and made several claims that corroborated forensic evidence, in addition to making numerous false statements. And despite a thorough investigation and extensive search, the victim's body was not recovered due to the defendant removing and concealing it. I can't even, y'all. Sometimes you just think, what if that video had not been found? I mean, it's just amazing. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this. Blows my mind. All right, moving on to Tanner Horner. Disgusting dude who said he killed Athena Strand, who was 7 years old. FedEx guy said he ran over her with the FedEx truck, put her in there, tried to break her neck, strangled her to death. Look, y'all, I'm very torn on the death penalty just by default, but for this guy, he admitted he did it. He led them to her body, take him to the county square, but he's been indicted on capital murder charges and aggravating kidnapping and was in court today for his arraignment. What did he do? Pled not guilty to her kidnapping and her murder. He opted to waive the reading of the charges against him and the reading of the arraignment. Now, back in December, he was charged with 3 sexual assault charges, but those are separate from this case. This dates back to 2013, just a predator. And there was a woman online who very vocally said, "Nobody believed me when I said he assaulted me when I was 16." And had been actually calling him out on social media periodically since that happened. She's a grown woman now, but still, you're seeing a pattern of an absolute predator, allegedly, just from a while back. All right, moving on to Bryan Kohberger, who is accused of murdering the 4 University of Idaho students. His attorneys have asked the Idaho Supreme Court to keep the gag order in place. It was put in place barring attorneys, law enforcement agencies, and others associated with that case from talking or writing about it. The media says this violates the right to free speech. So, in response, public defender Jay Logsdon said, "What the media really seeks here is a procedural victory, knowing full well it cannot win on the merits of any test. Given the pervasive and grotesquely twisted nature of media coverage that has occurred thus far." I understand defense attorneys have a hard time when their clients' cases are all over the news, public, national, worldwide. This was worldwide, as was Alec Murdaugh, as was Lori Vallow. But it's just the world we live in. You look at somebody like me, a podcast, it's one avenue of getting what is put out there, just in different form than print or your news station. It's 2023. Everything is online these days. We have access to files, we have access to court documents. So I don't think any defense attorney should say that it's just crazy that the media is covering this on all ends. When you have a horrific crime, such as 4 college students being brutally murdered, it's going to make news. So blame it on your client. An investigator told People 2 weeks before the murders, Kohberger had sent a direct message to one of the female victims on Instagram. The victim did not respond, but he sent multiple messages, mostly saying, "Hey, how are you?" Clearly didn't get the hint. Also, an unsealed search warrant gives a little insight into what investigators took when that search warrant was executed in multiple places. Nothing noteworthy was taken from his office at Washington State University, but the search warrant for his apartment was executed the same day of his arrest, which was December 30th. So, what did they find? 1 silver flashlight, 4 medical style gloves, a white Arizona Jean Company large t shirt, Champion large black sweatshirt, black and white size 13 Nike shoes, Under Armour socks, large pair of shorts, and black boxer shorts, 1 buckle swab. In his car, the following items were taken: 7 quarters, 36 dimes, 32 nickels, and 8 pennies, gloves, receipts, car insurance and registration, hiking boots, a Comfort M room key holder, tire irons, shovel, goggles, a wrench, a door panel was taken from the car, as well as the seat belt, the visor, and the brake and gas pedals, band-aids. What did they get from the home in Pennsylvania where he was arrested and where he was home for the holidays? A knife. Wonder if it's the knife. A Glock 22 40 caliber, Smith & Wesson pocket knife, 3 Block 40 caliber magazines that were empty, Taylor cutlery knife with a leather sheath, a black face mask, black gloves, black hat, black mask, an AT&T bill for him, a book with underlining on page 118. We do not know what book that is, I don't think. Prescriptions, cell phone, laptop, multiple dark colored pants, a Columbia Navy fleece, New Balance shoes, 2 pairs of dark colored boots, a criminal psychology book, a note to dad from Bryan, a green leafy substance. At his apartment in Washington, some of the things taken also were the dust container from a vacuum cleaner, 13 possible hair strands, one of which may belong to an animal. Can we say, "What's up, Murphy? Did you help solve your mommy's crime?" A Fire TV stick, a pillow with a reddish brown stain, and a computer tower. His preliminary hearing is set for June. All right, moving on. Orrin Orson West. Where are the boys? We still don't know where the boys are, but we know where adoptive mom and dad are. They're in jail, about to go to trial for their murders. The attorneys for the adoptive parents, Trezell and Jacqueline West, say the prosecution's case is based on statements made by one of their other children. Their trial is set to start this month on March 20th. This is a busy month. March 20th is when jury selection for Letecia Stauch starts. March, April, crazy busy for this podcast because I am going to loosely cover Orrin and Orson West as well as Letecia Stauch. Although Leticia's is not going to be televised, I don't think. Not sure about Orrin and Orson West's adoptive parents. But March 20th, they're charged with second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, child cruelty, and other offenses. Speaking of Miss Letecia, her trial is expected to last 6 weeks. In a hearing last month, her attorneys say they were still missing a report from an additional mental health evaluation, which was due to them on February 13th. Pretty sure it's been handed over. There's not a whole lot of new news on her, but jury selection, like I just said, set for March 20th, and that alone could take 2 weeks. Judge Werner expects to bring in 110 potential jurors, ending with 12 to sit and 6 alternates. The actual testimony they estimate could start no later than April 3rd, which, guess what? Same day Lori Vallow's trial is set to start. Attorneys who are representing El Paso County, as well as 2 El Paso deputies, have asked a lawsuit filed by Letecia be tossed out. She is suing some deputies, the jail's food provider, and a medical provider, saying the jail mistreated her and violated her First and Eighth Amendments against cruel and unusual punishment. She says that her and other inmates were not able to get their kosher meals, saying the parties involved expect me to follow my signed religious agreement, but can't ignore it on their end. She also says the medication the jail gave her for stomach issues doesn't work. And she tried in 2021 and 2022 to get new medicine, but was denied. She said that, quote, flabbergasted her. Also, under medical mistreatment, she says she fell off the top bunk and hit her head. She said she asked for an evaluation several times, but it took 30 days for them to take a look at her. She says she continues to have headaches, difficulty thinking clearly, and remembering information. A little convenient, don't you think? Well, so that's kind of the updates I have for today. I know there's other updates in other cases, but I'm kind of trying to keep this a little bit short because I am tired and I have a lot of stuff to catch up on. I have emails, text messages, inboxes from listeners, and I love talking to my listeners. I'm chipping away at those. Going to be launching the Discord server probably tomorrow. It's going to be a place for everybody to gather and just hang out and talk. We can do watch parties, all kinds of really cool stuff. I'm going to do a live information session with Michelle, who helped set that up. We're going to teach everybody. If you don't know, it's a really cool resource. It's a place for everybody to gather, even if you're not on Facebook or Twitter, to talk about the cases, share media, that kind of thing. I'm going to be working on some new merch. I'm working on a website. I'm working on a new intro for the podcast. I'm working on a lot of stuff. I need to clean up my YouTube page. Oh, y'all, but it's a good problem to have because I love what I do every day. Welcome to all of our new listeners. Stick with me. If you guys want the latest on Lori Vallow, hit up that mega series. If you want to start from the beginning and get ready for trial, now's the time. There's over 50 episodes laying everything we know so far out. You'll be ready to go on April 3rd so you can follow the long road to justice, because it's been just that with her case. I'm keeping an eye on everything. So if anything happens, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification. You'll get updates when I post something. So I'll be doing a lot more YouTube shorts now that I'm back home, when little pieces of information come in. And also planning a big live this week at some point. I'm going to see if Anjanette wants to come on, and we're just going to talk Murdaugh. In 6 weeks, we, have covered this case. I was in that courtroom every single day for testimony, and I would love to just go live and answer your questions as they come. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to try to coordinate that here today. In the meantime, hope you have a good rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow.